In the cold, open terrain with no cover in the direction of Pokrovsk, a Russian military vehicle was forced to stop. That brief moment, which should have been used for troop consolidation, instead became the beginning of destruction. From behind the seemingly silent sky, the soldiers of the Dovbush Hornets Unmanned Systems Battalion of the 68th Separate Jaeger Brigade of Ukraine had already locked onto their targets. The first attack began as the Russian infantry dismounted and scattered hastily across the open field. The Ukrainian drone operator, with pinpoint precision, aimed aerial ammunition at the advance group, which had not yet sought cover. The first explosion struck directly in the center of the formation, disrupting coordination and causing immediate panic. Not long after that, a second attack followed without pause. As some Russian soldiers ducked and ran away from the vehicle, a second drone ambushed from a different angle. One by one, the targets were systematically struck, not indiscriminately, but measuredly and coldly. The vast open terrain turned into a deadly trap where every movement exposed their position. In the third phase of the attack, Dovbush Hornets operators exploited the chaos, prioritizing Russian infantry separated from their units. Drones hovered low, locking onto individuals attempting to hide behind dips in the ground or the thin shadows of vehicles, and small but precise explosions ensured no opportunity for regrouping. At the same time, follow-up attacks demonstrated a high level of coordination between operators and observers. When one target was eliminated, the drones quickly moved on to the next. However, the technology and coordination of the Dovbush Hornets negated this hope, and follow-up attacks ensured a complete sweep of the area around the vehicles. There was no time for Russian troops to evacuate their comrades. Any movement attempts were immediately detected and intercepted from the air. In the final phase, the area around the stopped vehicles was completely overrun from the air, leaving the remaining Russian infantry without any fighting capacity and command. After the attack ended, the once tranquil open terrain turned into a zone of devastation. The Pokrovsk front line was once again desolate, leaving behind debris, traces of explosions, and clear evidence of the dominance of Ukrainian unmanned systems on the front lines. This operation once again underscored the crucial role of the Dovbush Hornets Unmanned Systems Battalion as silent hunters in the skies of the battlefield. With precision, patience, and technology, they turned every small enemy mistake into utter destruction, making the Pokrovsk direction an increasingly lethal zone for any Russian infantry movement. Currently, Ukraine has captured another unarmed Russian prisoner on the Pokrovsk direction. He has fallen into the hands of the 46th Brigade, says Serhiy Kondratyuk, acting head of the communications department of the Podilska Brigade. Moscow views the capture of Pokrovsk as a political lever to make an impression on U.S. President Donald Trump amid so-called peace talks that Ukraine is losing the entire Donetsk Oblast. If Kyiv is forced to leave Donbass, Russia will receive strong fortifications from which Ukraine has been defending the region for almost 12 years. The Russians have used him as a living antenna without weapons. They have only given him body armor, helmet, and an antenna, and have shown him a point on the map where he was supposed to sit as a living relay for their drones and their communications equipment, says Kondratyuk. But he hasn't sat there for long. A Ukrainian Baba Yaga unmanned aerial vehicle has flown past, and the position has been destroyed. The occupier has been lucky as he has survived. Ukrainian soldiers have found him there and have taken him prisoner, Kondratyuk has noted. Currently, Russians are trying to engage less in direct combat due to the winter. However, the Russian troops on the Pokrovsk direction are trying to fully exploit the difficult weather conditions and have intensified pressure on the defense forces' positions, bringing the number of attacks to 40 to 45 per week. The Russians have been trying to engage less in direct combat and to get behind our lines in order to find UAV launch points, as well as artillery unit positions, in order to direct their own artillery and aviation at them accordingly. Periodically, the Russian forces have been using heavy armored vehicles. For instance, in January, there were 2 massive assaults. They have been completely destroyed, with a total of 80 occupiers eliminated. Paratroopers have also been regularly taking Russians prisoner. Russian troops creep through the city's ruins, but every movement risks exposure. Russian pockets found and erased. The 91st Separate Battalion, in cooperation with the Ukrainian Air Force Command, destroyed a shelter with the occupiers with scarce guided aviation bombs on the Pokrovsk direction. According to Ukraine's 7th Air Assault Corps, over 200 Russian soldiers are currently stationed in Pokrovsk, and they are constantly infiltrating the city. However, the entire grouping on this axis is estimated at 170,000 troops. Russian President Vladimir Putin reportedly ordered the Russians to capture the city by November 15th in order to demonstrate to the US President Donald Trump administration that Ukraine must cede the country's east to Russia. Russia has been attempting to seize Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts for 12 years. On the monitor of the 91st Battalion Command Center, they detected several Russian positions with concentrations of occupation forces. The unit alone cannot completely eliminate them. Guided aerial bombs are needed, the 91st Battalion explained. The battalion command decided to develop the operation in close coordination with aviation. In the released footage, you can see how the aviation bombs, also known as KABS, hit the target within minutes. The shelter with personnel was eliminated, short, precise, and effective, the battalion reported. For several days, hundreds of KABs and FPV attacks on the city, with hundreds of KABs per day, where 1,000 people remain. Meanwhile, Artem Privolnov, head of communications for the Ukrainian 155th Separate Mechanized Brigade, named after Anna of Kiev, told Radio Free Europe/Radio Liberty that Russia increased KAB strikes on the Pokrovsk agglomeration to a record number in recent days. Air defense against KABs in Ukraine is currently provided by experimental and partially implemented systems, but full protection from such strikes has not yet been achieved. Privolnov noted that Ukrainian fighters in Pokrovsk are not retreating. We are moving to reserve positions because the defensive lines were completely destroyed and are not recoverable. As of November 7th, Ukrainian defenders repelled 58 Russian assaults in Pokrovsk, according to the Ukrainian General Staff. Nearly 1,200 civilians remain in the city. Evacuation from the community is practically impossible due to the security situation, reports Dmytro Petlin, head of the Duty Operations, Communications, Alert, and Public Information Department of the Donetsk Regional Military Administration.